Ladies and gentlemen, good evening once again, and thank you for joining us for After Hours Evening. A hello to those of you who are watching from online as well. My name is Derek, and I'm pleased to introduce you to tonight's After Hours guest speaker, Tanya Otero from the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup team. Thank you so much for being here, Tanya.
Thank you for having me, Derek. Great, well, thank you, everyone. Good evening. Again, my name is Tanya. I'm with the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup, or a joint conservation initiative with Vancouver Aquarium and WWF Canada. There we go. So last summer, I had the privilege of doing a shoreline cleanup along the West Coast Trail of our beautiful BC coast. And when I first saw the beach from the shoreline, I saw this, a pristine sandy beach, a view that makes this easily one of my favorite shorelines along the BC coast. And I thought to myself, we're not going to have very much to clean. But in the days that we were there, we cleaned out an incredible amount of items, from large items like foam floats, tires, buoys, and everyday items like lawn chairs, toothbrushes, kids' toys, and water bottles. So many water bottles. As a volunteer engagement coordinator for the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup, I have to say, my job is pretty cool. I get to interact with amazing volunteers all across Canada and hear about their shoreline cleanup experiences and what they're finding on their local shorelines. We have an amazing diversity of volunteers in group types and cultures and size of cleanups. Group types range from scouts and guides to school groups, corporate groups, concerned citizens, nonprofit groups, the list goes on. But whether they're a group of 1, 2, 10, or 100, each group has a common goal of keeping their local shoreline clean. But what does a shoreline look like? When you look at these pictures, you might say that that top left picture, the nice sandy beach, is similar to the BC coast. That might be a shoreline. But the truth is that everywhere across Canada, beyond our coastal areas, there are streams, creeks, rivers, lakes, marshlands, even storm drains. These are all shorelines. Within the shoreline cleanup program, anywhere that land connects to water is a shoreline, and it has the potential for a cleanup. Last year, nearly 60,000 volunteers across Canada went out to keep their local shoreline clean. There were 2,016 cleanups done in that year, and what volunteers found wasn't far off from what we found on the West Coast Trail. I mean, some of the volunteers across Canada have found some pretty weird things like a meat grinder, a rainbow clown wig, a Scotty dog cookie cutter, a debit card machine, a jar of medication from 1978, and my personal favorite, a full dinner in a roasting pan floating down a creek. I kid you not, somebody submitted that. And I've yet to see the pictures, but it sounds pretty awesome. But the more common items that they found fit right into our Dirty Dozen list, the top 12 items found on shorelines. These numbers were collected by volunteers from coast to coast to coast through our program's data collection cards. From this data we collect, we can see that cigarette butts are the #1 item found on shorelines. Last year we found over 409,000 cigarette butts on shorelines across Canada. Following that is food wrappers, bottle caps, beverage bottles, beverage cans, other plastics and foam, straws and stirrers, plastic grocery bags, plastic lids, plastic cups or paper cups and plates. So when you look at this list, what commonality do you see? These are common everyday items, and for the most part, they're made of plastic. When it makes its way into our waters, litter can have a pretty negative impact on our environment. It has 3 major impacts on environment and wildlife, the first being entanglement. Marine mammals and like whales can become entangled in fishing nets or fishing lines. The Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue Team has performed many sea lion disentanglements. Items like plastic packaging straps can cause serious injury, cutting into animals' necks. It's estimated that 300 to 400 sea lions are currently entangled off the coast of Vancouver Island. Ingestion is the second large form of impact litter can have. Many animals like birds and fish can confuse small plastic fragments as food. And we know that animals in our ecosystems are consuming these small plastic items. Just last year, there was a fish caught in Vedder River, and when they cut it open, they found small plastic fragments inside the fish's stomach. So we know this is happening locally as well. For seabirds like the albatross, consuming plastic can result in starvation as their stomachs fill. Sorry. There you go. As their stomachs fill with plastic and the birds are unable to get the nutrients they need to survive. Plastic has a great ability to break down to smaller and smaller pieces. This is a third impact of litter. Some plastic, like microbeads, are designed small. You might see these as the scrubbers in your toothpaste or your face wash. The impacts that microbeads and microfibers that come off of clothing, like fleece, is subject to the research in a moment and is known to be a spreading problem. The tiny plastics have been found around the world from the Arctic, rivers, the deeper levels of the ocean. Vancouver Aquarium scientist Peter Ross and his team are looking into these plastics and have found that zooplankton, the smallest animal in the food chain, are eating these microscopic pieces of plastic. Before I joined the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup, I had a love for recycling and waste. But I've learned so much through the program that I can honestly say it's changed my life. And I know that's a drastic statement to make, but it's true. It's changed the way I live my day-to-day life. I had no idea how much plastic was being found on shorelines until I saw the Dirty Dozen list of common items. And what surprised me was that some of these plastic items were items that I use every single day. Convenient plastic packaging, single-use plastics that might last us 5 minutes, a day, a week, a month. The harm that these single-use plastics can have on our environment didn't seem worth using in the first place. So here's how my life has changed since I joined the Shoreline Cleanup. At the start of 2015, I took on a personal challenge to live a year without plastic. No takeout containers, no shopping bags, no plastic shopping bags, no straws, no plastic drink bottles, no plastic toothpaste tubes, no plastic shampoo bottles, no plastic clamshell containers with fruits or veggies, no plastic packaged snacks. You get the idea, just no single-use plastic. And in that year, I learned to make skin products like deodorant, toothpaste, and sunscreen, and lip balm. Cleaning products like dish soap, laundry detergent, and all-purpose sprays. I was overjoyed to find toilet paper, whoops, too fast. Toilet paper packaged in paper and not in plastic. And I created my own plastic-free kit, which contains things like bamboo cutlery. I've got my sippy cup mason lid, which goes onto my mason jar, and a nice cozy for my mason jar, which can make it from a water vessel into a coffee cup. Gotta love mason jars, right? And a cloth bag, which is great for snacks, coffee shop cookies, or a bagel to go. The end results weren't perfect. There were challenges I encountered during the year. The top photo here you can see with me with my 2 mason jars full of half the year's worth of plastic trash, and the bottom photo shows the jar's contents with my dilemma items of single-use plastic. The year opened my eyes up to the amount of single-use plastic I, and many of you likely use every single day. With many of these single-use dilemma items I encountered, I did find a plastic-free alternative. Some alternatives were simple switches, but some were a bit more challenging. But overall, that year-long experience showed me that making the switch from to plastic-free living, or reducing your plastic-free use, is entirely possible. So in the spirit of Plastic-Free July that we are currently in, I invite you to take on the challenge. Here are my top 3 tips to plastic-free living. Maybe? The first is to start today. Don't think about yesterday, the plastics you used last year. Just focus on what you can do today. Set rules. Set some ground rules for how you want to use fewer plastics in your life. Will you allow compostable plastics? Will you purge all disposable plastics from your home? Or just focus on new plastics? Set a few rules based on your own comfort level. The third tip is to start small. Choose 2 or 3 items. Maybe it's single-use plastic bags. Maybe it's coffee cup lids. Maybe it's straws. You get the idea. These small changes will have a big impact on our environment. And every so often we need to go outside to clear our heads to remember why reducing our plastic is so important. So this summer, head out to your favorite shoreline, take a look at that gorgeous waterway and do a shoreline cleanup. Organize a shoreline cleanup with your family or group of friends. And whether it's at Kitts Beach, English Bay, Fraser River, or northern BC, there are so many shorelines that need help, and there's so many to choose from on our website. What type of litter items will you find, and what impacts will they have on the environment if they're left behind and not picked up? So I leave you with an inspiring video from those summer days that we spent on the West Coast Trail. You can view this video and register yourself at a first shoreline cleanup at any time at shorelinecleanup.ca and take action and to help keep shorelines clean.
Lies a fabled sliver of the world. Many who experience it consider this place untouched, wild, an example of nature in its most raw form.
When I think of the West Coast Trail, I think of trees, beautiful beaches, whales.
I've always seen the West Coast Trail as kind of like a challenge, something to conquer and something to experience.
The West Coast Trail is truly one of the crown jewels of the Canadian National Park system.
I'm expecting to see a good deal of stuff that's come over from the tsunami in Japan.
I hope we find beautiful, pristine, clean beaches, but I'm pretty sure we're going to find a lot of things that shouldn't be there.
Thanks, guys!
Resilient, they stay around an animal's neck. They look pretty harmless, but we know these ones cause a lot of damage. Oh yeah.
Wedged between the endless Pacific.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Tanya Otero from the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup for sharing her presentation with us. A shout out as well to those of you who are viewing this presentation from home using our live streaming system. On behalf of the Vancouver Aquarium, we hope that you've learned something new about our programs. And if you'd like to discover more, please visit our website, shorelinecleanup.ca, to find out how you or your organization could take part in one of these cleanups. If you have any questions for Tanya, please feel free to come on up to the podium at this point in time. And thank you for joining us for the After Hours Evening Night.